So, I have a really special and nostalgic relationship with the Hunger Games series. I read the series for the first time when I was 9 years old. I struggled through the first few chapters for months, and then one night I couldn't sleep and I had nothing to do, so I started reading it again. And from that point on, I binged the series. This was the first time I had ever had an experience being unable to put a book down, as well as my first ever 5-star series, and I've been chasing that high ever since. When Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes was released in 2020, I got a taste of that for the first time in 8 years. As much as I loved that book, more than anything, I've always wanted a Haymitch origin story, and now it's here. Okay, so as you may or may not know by this point in the video, you probably know by this point in the video, I love the Hunger Games, and we have a new book coming out in this series on March 18th, and it has been a while since I've been this excited for something, especially considering the fact that this new book is going to be a Haymitch origin story, which I have been saying that I wanted that for years. I read the original trilogy for the first time when I was like 8 years old, and even at that point I knew that I really wanted a Haymitch origin story. And matter of fact, I was that kid who braided my hair, asked for a bow and arrow for like Christmas or something, or my birthday, and my dad took me to Walmart and bought like just a little kid's bow and arrow. Like it didn't have real arrows or anything. They were like dull ends. If I shot something with them, it definitely would have hurt, but like it probably wouldn't have killed anything. Probably for the best, but anyway. And I would play in my backyard with my bow and arrow. And I also used to watch a lot of short films that people would make, and one of the short films that I like was a Haymitch one, which I wonder if I could find it. I'll link some of my favorite Hunger Games short films down below. I haven't watched any in a very long time, so who even knows if they hold up, but Mainstay Pro. It has 14 million views, a 12-minute short film, and I loved that shit when I was a kid. Yes, I was that kid who would just sit in the basement watching Hunger Games videos. I loved watching like the bad lip reading. I loved watching short films. Even just people that, they weren't even like short films. They were like, they had no budget. They were just like high school kids that would pick a random Hunger Games to like reenact and make up. Anyways, it doesn't matter. I outgrew that phase. But what I did not outgrow is my love for reading. And there's a new book to be read. It's not out yet. It is, like I just said, set to release on March 18th, and it's currently the 15th. And I do want to talk about some of the theories that people have, and notice I said that other people have, because I am not the type of person to come up with theories. I'm not creative. I'm not smart enough for that. I don't even like doing that because I don't like being wrong, and almost always theories that people have are wrong, or at least not entirely true. So, but then I get really disappointed when I don't voice my own theories, but then they end up to be right, but nobody believes me because I didn't say it out loud. That happens all the time when my boyfriend and I are watching movies. I convince myself not to say something because I feel like it's stupid, but then what I said actually ends up happening. But anyway, I'm on my phone right now, if you are wondering why I keep looking down. I have been checking out Goodreads to look at the description of this book every few months. It's been a while since I've looked. The last time I looked, the description was really vague. It didn't have like a lot of detail, but I wonder if now that we're 3 days out from the release date, there is an actual full-fleshed out description. Okay, yeah, it looks like there is more, so I'm going to read it to you. When you've been set up to lose everything you love, what is there left to fight for? As the day dawns on the 50th annual Hunger Games, fear grips the districts of Pan Am. This year, in honor of the Court of Quell, twice as many tributes will be taken from their homes. Back in District 12, Haymitch Abernathy is trying not to think too hard about his chances. All he cares about is making it through the day and being with the girl he loves. When Haymitch's name is called, he can feel all his dreams break. He's torn from his family and his love, shuttled to the capital with the 3 other District 12 tributes, a young friend who's nearly a sister to him, a compulsive odds maker, and the most stuck-up girl in town. As the games begin, Haymitch understands he's been set up to fail, but there's something in him that wants to fight and have that fight reverberate far beyond the deadly arena. I wonder if, because we know from the original trilogy, I think it's like the second book, Katniss's mom mentions that one of her friends was in the games, Maisie Donner, and Maisie Donner is Madge's mom's twin sister, so the mayor's wife's twin sister. Madge is Katniss's friend, if you don't remember. So I wonder if, I mean, obviously continuity is important to Suzanne Collins. She's not just gonna write out that character, but I wonder if the most stuck-up girl in town is Maisie Donner. I feel like most stuck-up girl in town is probably the most accurate because they're probably going to form an alliance. And I think that that tension would be really interesting to read about. Now that I've read that, I would like to get into some theories that other people have. Not me, well, I'll talk about whether or not I believe these theories, but I basically just Googled like sunrise on the reaping theories and made a list of them. I think I've got 8 theories here. Some of them aren't even theories. Some of them are just thoughts that people are talking about. I think that the list that I looked at was made sort of before we had all of the details of the book. I think that when it was announced, I can't remember if it was this book takes place during the 50th Hunger Games and that's all we knew, and that anybody who read the original trilogy connected the dots and knew that that meant that it was a Haymitch story. I can't remember how we got the information that we got, but what I do know is that it will definitely be interesting to see a Hunger Games that takes place with 48 people instead of 28 people, because that's sort of the catch for the second quarter quell. If you didn't know, which you probably do, but if you didn't, that's the catch, is that twice as many tributes would be reaped, so 2 girls and 2 boys from every district, which was also described in the synopsis of the book that I just read to you. I'm curious if she's gonna be able to fit all of that into, because like 48 people is a lot more people to keep track of than 24, and I'm curious to see how it'll go in the writing, because obviously in the Hunger Games you're watching 24 people die, well 22 people die. The thing about that book is that they're less than 400 pages. They're like 380 pages. And the way that Suzanne Collins writes her books is she writes them like screenplays. Well, not all of her books, but that trilogy of books, she writes them like screenplays. So there's 3 acts all split into like 9 different scenes. But then with Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, she did not continue that writing method. So, and Goodreads says that Sunrise on the Reaping is going to be 400 pages, but actually maybe I can Google. Oh yeah, no, it is 400 pages, about the same length as the original trilogy. So I wonder if she's gonna go back to writing it that way, but she didn't with Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, so that's very intriguing. I just went on a ramble. I'm geeking out about this, I'm so sorry. Number 2 is that Haymitch already has a girlfriend at the beginning of the book before he was reaped, which is different from the other books in the series. Yeah, that's true. All of the people that are reaped are single, they're not in relationships, but Suzanne Collins really does like romance thrown in to books, like Peeta and Katniss, and then Snow and Lucy. Probably start, I don't know, it's just so weird to imagine Haymitch in a relationship. I can't believe that we're actually going to be able to figure out sort of what made Haymitch the bitter character, the bitter and sarcastic character that we know now. Okay, number 3 is that we know from the OG trilogy that Haymitch used the force field to his advantage in the games and that he was punished for it. So we'll probably see some form of tragedy surrounding Haymitch losing his loved ones, because we know that he's all alone now. Yeah, I've thought about that too, how sad it will be, because like in the synopsis we know that in the beginning of this book he has a girlfriend. Like in the most recent timeline we know that he doesn't have anyone he loves left. He lives alone and he drowns his sorrows in alcohol. That's what we know about him. And he doesn't have anyone left alive that he cares for. So I'm sure that we'll probably figure out how he ended up that way. And I did know that he gets punished because of using the force. I'm curious to see how that plays out. Okay, this next one is like actually a theory. I'm curious to see what characters we will see in this new book, because obviously in the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes we had a lot of not like actual characters from the original trilogy, because that one takes place like 65 years before the Hunger Games. We have their family lineage. We have President Snow, obviously, and Tigress, which are interesting to see, but then we also have like family members of characters in the original trilogy. So I'm curious to see how Suzanne Collins is going to write characters that we already know into this book, because it's only the 50th Hunger Games. So the games are more fleshed out than they are during the 10th Hunger Games, which is when the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes takes place. I wonder if we're gonna get to see Effie, because that would be really interesting, because I know Effie is definitely old enough to have existed during the 50th Hunger Games. So I'm curious to see if we will see her. Oh, that's a good point. Okay, so curiosity about Haymitch and the other District 12 tributes going through the training period without a mentor, because the only District 12 winner previously is gone, as we know from Ballad. Lucy Gray Baird is missing. But obviously in Hunger Games fashion, we know that tributes are mentored by previous victors from their district. But if there's no District 12 victors previously, Haymitch was the first one, then who's going to mentor him? Or does he have to survive without a mentor? Or maybe any districts that have overflowing victors that don't have tributes to mentor? Like, I don't know if I'm making sense. Like District 1 and 2, they definitely have a lot of victors in comparison, and 4. So I wonder if, obviously, I'm really bad with words. I wonder if maybe previous victors from other districts will mentor District 12. I wonder if we'll get to see Megs. Like, can you imagine if Megs, actually, I don't think Megs would mentor Haymitch. I just don't think, because I feel like we would have known that previously. We know that Meg's mentored Finnick. I love Meg's though. I would not be disappointed to see her again. Actually, I kind of hope that we do. Okay, this one is one that I don't really understand the theory, but I remember reading about it a lot when The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes was released, that a lot of people thought that Lucy Gray Baird's sister, Maud Ivory Baird, I think probably, I've always wondered, but I think, is it because of the singing that people think that? Because Katniss always said that when her father would sing, the birds would stop to listen. She gets that from her father. It would put her in her 50s. I don't know, I'm just, let me know if you know more of the reason why people think that they're related, because I have wondered that a lot, and that's the only thing I can come to. Actually, you know what? I bet you I could probably look it up and figure it out. I don't know why I've never looked it up and figured it out myself, but I probably could do that. Okay, yeah. Okay, people theorize Katniss Everdeen might be related to Maud Ivory Baird, a character from The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, due to shared District 12 origins, singing abilities, yeah, okay, and connections to Coriolanus Snow, though the theory is not confirmed by Suzanne Collins. Well, if she writes it into the book, then it will be. Here's a breakdown of the reasoning behind the theory. Both Katniss and Maud Ivory are from District 12, a key element in the Hunger Games universe, which some fans believe could indicate a familiar link. Okay, but lots of people are from District 12. Singing abilities. Katniss's father was a skilled singer, and Maud Ivory is known for her singing talent, which some fans believe could be a shared trait passed down through generations. I guess, yeah, because we found out more about the Hanging Tree song in The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, which we knew about from reading Mockingjay, and then we kind of find out the backstory behind that, so I wonder if that runs even deeper and has family ties. Fan speculation. The theory is largely based on fan speculation and analysis of the characters' similarities and connections within the Hunger Games universe. Maud Ivory is presumed to have died or disappeared, so her descendants, if any, would be a distant possibility. But yeah, it seems like that theory is mostly just like fan speculation for fun, because it is a fun theory, I will give you that, but we don't actually have any like concrete proof. Anyway, I've been talking for quite some time, but I did want to sort of talk about theories because I'm really excited about this book, and nobody else is quite as excited about this book as I am, like in my personal life. So I wanted to talk about it with somebody, and here I am doing that. So I will cut in after I'm done reading the book to give non-spoiler thoughts, and then you will see like a full-fledged vlog of me talking about the book and reading the book and enjoying myself. So yes, I don't have anything else to say, so I will see you shortly. I'm so excited for this book to come out. Okay, so I have my phone because I have a bunch of notes of thoughts that I can talk about that are non-spoiler, because I am done reading the book, and before the vlog portion I wanted to talk about non-spoiler thoughts. So if you've never read the book, you can decide if you want to read the book based on my recommendation. You probably wouldn't care about my recommendation, but I'm giving it to you anyway because I loved the book. We'll start with that. I gave this book 5 stars, which this was definitely a 5-star prediction for this year, but I was worried that it wasn't going to be a 5-star because when Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes came out, that was a 5-star prediction because all of the books in the OG trilogy were 5 stars. However, that one just, it wasn't the same. It was still 4 stars. Like, that's not to say that I didn't like the book, but it was only 4 stars. This book, I gave 5 stars. I'm so happy that I did, and I'm so happy that I got that same feeling. So I wanted to start off by saying that you should absolutely read this book. This is my official endorsement. This is my favorite book that I've read this year. I'm trying to think, are there any books that The Six of Crows duology was pretty good, but this takes the cake. This is definitely my favorite book that I've read this year. So now we're gonna talk about why that is. I finished it quite some time ago, and just what makes me so certain that this is a 5-star book is the fact that I have not stopped thinking about it since I closed it. I've been rereading the ending and bawling my eyes out. I have a clip of myself rereading the ending and bawling my eyes out. I bawled my eyes out. All of this to say, this book made me cry, and more than any of the other books in the series, this one was the most of an emotional gut punch. This is coming from someone who cried during Mockingjay, so it's already an emotional series for me, but just something about Haymitch's origin story. And I think that most people would probably agree that this was the most emotional of the books. Definitely the most gruesome, but also emotional. Now, as I've probably mentioned, Suzanne Collins is definitely the author that is responsible for getting me into reading, because the Hunger Games trilogy was the book series that got me into reading. And I've talked at length about how I really always wanted a Haymitch origin story based off of short films I saw, based off of the tiny little snippet that we got in Catching Fire. and finally getting this book, which I'm so glad that she gave it to us, I am so satisfied with how the story actually is. It was just incredible. It was more than I could have hoped for. There was no point in me even picturing it in my head the way that it plays out, because she just outdoes it. I mean, it's her story, so of course, but it's so good. The pacing of this book was perfect as well. It followed the same writing structure, which I had sort of theorized and hoped that it followed the same reading structure that I mentioned in the last clip, with the 3 parts, 9 chapters in each part, 27 chapters total. Basic math, you know. And it did follow that, which is just phenomenal pacing. I wish more books are written like that, because it just, every chapter has a purpose and a point, and it makes her books so easy to read. And you know that almost every chapter is going to end with some sort of cliffhanger or something to make you want to keep reading, which is what makes them so bingeable. I had to force myself to slow down reading this book because I wanted to like record as much as possible, but there were times when I had to force myself to pick up the camera to talk about a thought. I didn't want to stop reading, but I needed to talk about my thought because I would forget it because everything was moving so fast. And that is what I love about Suzanne's books, and that's what I think that Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes sort of missed the mark on a little bit. Not entirely, because like I said, it was still a good book, but it was very much, I don't know, it just wasn't the same. This went back to the roots. We got ample time to connect with Hamish and learn about the things that make him the way that he is. I respect and curse Suzanne Collins for that, because it made the ending so much more terrible, but that's what makes a good book, so I can't really fault her for it too much. It was really fascinating getting to see the way that the games were set up during this time period. Obviously it's like in the middle of Ballad and the trilogy, so there were things that did change, and it was really interesting to see what had changed. One of the aspects of this book that I thought was really like interesting that we don't really get as much, we get a little bit here and there, and it's like talked about how obviously the Capitol hides things from the public. You know, we know that that happens and it's discussed, but in this book you see so many of the things that are hidden from the public. It's almost like Hamish, and they tried less to hide those things from the tributes. Like in Katniss's book, it might just be the way that her character differs, but she's not really aware of as many things that are like going on as Hamish is, but Hamish is aware of a lot of things, and you get to see the things that the Capitol is hiding from the rest of the public. You get to see his version of events play out, and then you get to see actually like what was told. So I think that was, I know that I sound like I'm beating a dead horse, like I've reiterated the same thing so many times, but it just was cool to see, to say the least. That was one of my favorite aspects of the book. Oh, another thing, and this kind of like teeters on spoiler territory, but like I'm not going to spoil anything. I'm just going to say that another one of my favorite parts of this reading experience has been getting to see all of the characters that we know in this book, that we know from other books, was so fun. The way that they've changed, it was like one of the most exciting parts of the reading experience. Now I'm not going to spoil like specific characters that are going to pop up, because that was half the fun of reading the book for me, so I don't want to take that away from you if you are going to go read it. Suzanne Collins is just such a genius, and the way that she was subtle about it too, and then she would like slowly drip feed you information. Like she would give a super vague description, and then you think, oh my god, is it this person? And then you find out that it is that person, but like just enough details so that it causes the reader to think and you to like figure it out on your own, but not enough details for you where she's just like telling you like, oh, and by the way, it's like all very natural, if that makes sense. She's never just dropping characters in the book just to make you, you know, I don't know, excited, or to make it seem like it's connected. It's all very like, yeah, natural. I don't really have any other way of saying that. Sort of the last full thought that I have on the book is, if you know the poem by Edgar Allan Poe, The Raven, I loved the usage of that poem in this book, and I'm not going to go into too much detail, but the way that it all wraps up in a little bow at the end, and the way that that poem sort of ties into Hamish's alcoholism, and like you just get to see all of that in the book. And the ending was so crazy. Oh, the ending haunts me. Anyway, those are all of my non-spoiler thoughts. I have way more spoiler thoughts coming if you've read the book, which part of me feels like if you've clicked on this video, you've probably read the book. But maybe not. I don't know. I don't know how other people consume YouTube videos. Yeah, if you haven't read the book yet, absolutely do. I love this book so much. It's probably my favorite in the series, which I'm reluctant to say. It's between that or Catching Fire, but I think it might be this one just because of the emotions. Like, when I say I bawled my eyes out, the first time I bawled my eyes out, and the second time I was just going to start reading a paragraph and then all of a sudden I was crying and I didn't even realize. So that should be fun and exciting for you guys to see. But anyway, I have nothing else to say for the time being. Yeah, enjoy the rest of the video. Please go read this book. Okay, so I went to the bookstore. Release day was actually yesterday, but I didn't have time to go pick it up today. Or I didn't have time to go pick it up yesterday, so I went today. Wait, this was my most anticipated book of 2025, and I really hope that it's gonna be a good one. I'm just excited to read this book, and I wanted to check in and let you know that I was getting started. Start off the vlog portion of this book, let you know that everything from here on out will be full of spoilers, so if you don't want to be spoiled, don't watch. But I am going to record myself reading the first couple chapters and just like blurt out thoughts here and there. So if you don't want thoughts blurted at you, don't keep watching. I always love reading the quotes that she puts in the beginning of her books, or maybe it was just Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes that also had this, but I just like, because it feels like it gives a good idea of the theme. Part 1, birthday, because as we know, Haymitch's birthday is on Reaping Day, which has gotta suck, and Reaping Day is the 4th of July, I'm pretty sure. So obviously I've speculated, or I haven't speculated, but I've seen other people speculate, and I talked about it in my first clip. Haymitch's entire family gets slaughtered as punishment for him using the force field, and that would include his brother. Like, I don't remember how we know that he has a brother, but people apparently knew he had a brother, and we've just been introduced to his brother Sid, and he's 10 years old. If that's true, I don't know if I want to see it. I feel like I'm just gonna bawl my eyes out, but I guess we'll see. I love that her last name is Dove. Doves are like my favorite animal. If you didn't know that about me, now you do. Doves and pigeons, they're the same thing. Also, he calls his mom Ma, just like Sejanus from District 2. His dad also died in the mines. That's so crazy and sad. You know what just occurred to me? Okay, I might be wrong, so maybe I'll Google, and if I'm wrong, I'll just edit this out. That's the beauty of editing. Yeah, okay, so Lenore, like, I recognized the name from somewhere. What is the guy's wife's name from Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven? Is it Lenore? Quoth the Raven nevermore. Does not have the name I'm looking for. Okay, yeah, it is. Lenore is the name of the guy's wife in The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe, but that has no relevancy to what I'm about to say. What was, oh, the Covey. You know how the whole naming scheme that they have is that they have, like, the first part of their name is after a ballad, and then the second part of their name is a color. So that makes me wonder. Literally, as soon as I shut the camera off to reserve its battery life, I found out. Yes, Clerk Carmine is her uncle. I feel so vindicated. I was right. I love being right about things. See, this is what I was talking about. I love being right about things, and I'm so happy that I voiced that. She tends to take a dark view of things, but maybe that's to be expected from someone named for a dead girl. Well, half for the dead girl called Lenore in this old poem, and half for a shade of gray, which I found out the day I met her. Okay, there are so many connections in this book already. Hang on, I've got a sack with my bow. Burdock ran off. She scooted down the branches and swung to the ground. She wasn't one of Burdock's Everdeen cousins, but I knew he had some distant ones on his ma's side. Everdeen cousins. I'm bad at family lineage, so I don't know what that means. she wasn't one of Burdock's Everdeen cousins. So Burdock is the friend that is convincing him to climb the apple tree, and he is cousins with the Everdeens. Interesting. Okay, I just had another thought. So we've been introduced to this character, Astrid March. The way that she's described, so it occurred to me that we don't know Katniss's mom's name. We know that she is about Haymitch's age because her friend was in the games with Haymitch during this book. We'll get to meet her, but her name, not her name, my theory is that this girl Astrid March is Katniss's mom. He goes into the apothecary, Haymitch does, to pawn off a bottle of liquor, and it says, "The place is deserted except for my classmate Astrid March, who's arranging tiny bottles on a shelf behind the counter. A long blonde braid falls down her back, but the damp heat has brought out tendrils of hair that frame her perfect face. Astrid's the town beauty, enriched by District 12 standards. I used to hold that against her, but she showed up one night in the seam alone to treat a neighbor woman who'd been whipped for back-talking a peacekeeper. She brought some ointment she'd concocted herself, then slipped away, never mentioning payment." So I'm sure I will find out, or maybe Suzanne Collins wants us to just like know that it's her, but not know that it's her, if that makes sense. So also, okay, I shut the camera off because I was done talking, and then the last line of that paragraph is, "Town girls don't marry seam boys, not unless something really goes haywire." And we know that that's what happened, so is that a nod? I think. I'm so sorry that I keep stopping it, but you know what else just occurred to me? Your cousins can have the same last name as you, and I know that like obviously, but when I said, oh, Burdock, which obviously if he's in the woods, like that's potentially a nod, but one of his Everdeen cousins, that could be his last name, because his cousins could have the same last name as him on his dad's side, assuming that his dad has a brother. And the thing that made me think that is Haymitch mentions Burdock and then she blushes. I wanted to voice it just to see if I'm right. Here it is, Merrily Donner and Maisley Donner. So it mentioned Merrily Donner. It says, "Merrily Donner, who's in my class, waits on me in a crisp pink dress and matching ribbons in her sandy hair." That's the mayor's wife from the OG trilogy, because we know that Maisley Donner was Katniss's mom's friend, Astrid. I'm assuming. I don't want to go ahead and start calling her Astrid, but I'm assuming that it's Astrid. Yeah, his last name's Everdeen. The way that she just drip feeds us information is insane. I'm going to have such a good time reading this book. I'm already having such a good time reading this book. Also, that thing that I said during my first clip about Maisley Donner probably being the most stuck-up girl in town has been confirmed, because it says here, our attention shifts to the girl's pen where Astrid stands talking with Merrily and her identical twin sister Maisley, who's the most stuck-up girl in town. So Luella McCoy is 13. That is so sad. Wyatt Callow, of course Haymitch would be the last name drawn. What? Drusilla appears at the final name, and boy number 2 is Woodbine Chance. Who the fuck is that? He was a runner. They had a runner. And of course, they have to draw another name because they can't just count that as a death. Well, we know who gets drawn next. Holy shit. Literally, the odds could not be less in his favor.
I would have been too busy. Yes. Literally.
Otho Malark? Of course, I should have known. Holy shit. Is it Otho or Otho? I don't know, it's a Malark. A big lug of the guy who spokes on the bakery. "We need another boy, that dead one's no good," says Drusilla, clunking down the steps into the square. This is the moment. No fucking way, dude. Well, I think we've just found our replacement. He wasn't even reaped. That's fucking crazy. Plutarch? Was Plutarch? What even is this book? Was Plutarch a fucking peacekeeper? That's crazy. The whole thing is rigged. I didn't expect that at all. Holy shit. Okay, I'm already gonna fucking cry. And we're not even done chapter 2. It's the next day. I barely read any yesterday because I like read 2 chapters because I was just so tired. Gilmon is gonna be here for this as well. No, he won't, because he won't fucking stand up. Maybe I'll put him in the corner. Yep, there he is, chilling in the back. I'm going to read some more. I have an energy drink today so that I'm not so tired. I also didn't work as hard today because Thursdays are slow where I work, so. This part makes me sad, but when on the train car on the way to the Capitol, Haymitch calls Luella sweetheart, and that's what he used to call Katniss, so that makes me really sad. And Luella is the 13-year-old, probably means it as like an actual term of endearment, whereas with Katniss it kind of is more sarcastic, but deep down I think he has a soft spot for Katniss. Okay, so we found out who their mentors will be, and it will be other victors not from their own district, because obviously their own district only had Lucy up until this point, and they kind of mention her like an entire paragraph talking about the one victor that nobody knows about, and that he's tried bringing it up to Lenore, but even she doesn't want to talk about it, which obviously we know why, but he doesn't know why. So there's that little nod to Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. But then yeah, they select them from a pool of victors that are not mentoring their own district. I hope, what if they end up with Mags? That would be crazy. That might be a far reach, but I wonder if we know the person that ends up mentoring them. Now I'm excited to find out. Okay, I'm gonna keep reading. The Mockingjay pin. The Mockingjay pin. That's crazy. That's not something that I expected to pop. I don't know why I didn't expect it to pop up, because we know that Madge's mom gave her the pin. It's different in the movie, but like if you've read the books, you know that the pin was gifted to her by a family member when she gets it to Katniss, but now we know how she got it. I've moved again, but that's besides the point. One thing that I find interesting, and something that I mentioned that I wanted to sort of look at when reading this book to see like what changed from the 10th games to the 50th games and from the 50th games to the 74th games. I'm kind of surprised by how different the 50th games is from the 74th, because I had always just assumed that they had very strict rules and methods that they used to do things from the very beginning, and that they, or not from the very beginning, because obviously they had like the Colosseum type situation going on for like the first 10 games, and then it blew up, and then I'm pretty sure that they changed it up and then started doing the different arenas. But I always assumed that pretty quickly they got their method down pat and then just continued that during all of the games. But that's not the case, because there is actually way more differences between the 50th games and the 74th games than I thought that there would be. And I think it comes down to the tributes being viewed more as people as time goes on. Like when you go all the way back to the 10th games, they're literally locked up in a cage called the zoo. They're not really fed, they're not showered and clothed or anything. They're literally just locked in a cage called the zoo. And every time that they were injured, because there was like bombs exploding or whatever, they didn't get doctors, they got veterinarians is what they were called. And now I don't know if those were veterinarians that worked on animals that just so happened to also work on people, or if that's just what they called the medics that were trained or like given to, I don't really know. But regardless, calling them that is obviously dehumanizing. And then in this book, it's not the same. They are given food, that's so fucking crazy, because that's not even like treating them like animals in the 10th games, because they don't even feed them. Animals need food. Like they're living things, as a bare minimum need food, and they weren't even given that. So they weren't even treated like animals. They were treated like less than animals. In this one, they're given food, they're bathed. But the thing that was weird was when Haymitch is like meeting his prep team, whatever, getting all hosed down in the showers, they put something on him that itches, and I was like, that sounds unpleasant. I thought that it was supposed to be a luxurious experience. And then when we meet his prep team, we find out that that is an insecticide. So that's and not only that, but and Haymitch even points out, because his prep team leaves his nails long, but they don't call them nails, they call them claws. And like that's not something that immediately clocked to me, because I felt like it was just like a little comment, I don't really know, until Haymitch said, "Then they trim my nails, honoring my request to leave me enough to fight with, because as Proserpina says," capital names are so wild, "you might need your claws. I wonder if she thinks of my nose as a snout and my hair as fur and my feet as paws." But it's not quite as bad as it was in the 10th games. And I think that this all ties into the revolution and an uprising that obviously happens in the in the Hunger Games books. And you can sort of see it slowly getting there, because obviously every year is bringing them closer and closer to the final games when they have an uprising and a revolution. And obviously that's not something that just like a switch is flipped and it happens all in one day. It's like slowly over time, more and more people start to think about how wrong it is, which is crazy, because the first time I read the Hunger Games I was like, man, this is horrible. Reading the other books that we've gotten since, it's like, that's not even the worst that it could be. That makes the Hunger Games look good. Okay, so the chariot crashed and Luella died, I'm assuming. The tribute, and it took me a while to like piece it together just because of the way that it's worded. The axle on one of the chariots snaps and sends them flying, and Haymitch goes to like protect Luella, but they're like, you can't really do much when you're flying through the air, and he lands in a pool of blood, and he's like, okay, this is a better way to go than fighting to death in an arena with 47 other people. Okay, I'll just read it to you. "Next thing I know, I'm lying on the ground, my hand in a puddle of blood as the lights of the Capitol flash like fireflies above me. This is better, I tell myself, better than dying in the arena, better than weasels and starvation and swords. I'm embracing that when I realize the blood isn't mine, that fate isn't mine, and the tribute who's escaped the arena is Luella." At first I was like, escaped the arena? Like, that's not what Suzanne Collins meant when she wrote that. Are they're just gonna be 3? Do they count that as a death? Because in the 10th Hunger Games, when tributes died before the actual games began, they just counted that as a death. So I guess we'll find out, and I'll let you know when I find out. Oh my god, it is someone that they know. Well, okay, I'm talking about mentors, by the way. There might be another. Well, there is another, because she goes, "Hello, I'm Wyrus, one of your mentors." One of, so there's another one. But one of them is Wyrus, which makes me so excited because I loved her. That just confirms that she won the 49th Hunger Games, because it says, "Soft footfalls approach and a small young woman appears. I recognize her immediately, the black-haired girl from District 3 who won last year's Hunger Games." Oh, she would have been young. The oldest she could possibly be is 19. Yeah, I wonder who their other mentor is. We're about to meet the second mentor, and I feel like it's going to be Meg, because a second woman arrives, and she's older, probably near Hattie's age. It is Meg's. Oh my fucking god. Oh my god. This makes me so happy and so sad at the same time. I was right though. He's at one of the stations while they're training. That's all I know so far. That's just so exciting. I feel like this entire video is just me letting you know what characters are in the book. And Ampert's father. I didn't know Beatty had kids. Is that mentioned ever? I feel like it isn't, but I could be misremembering, but I usually have a pretty good memory, especially considering I literally just finished reading all 4 of the other books in preparation for this one, and I do not remember BT having a child or children or a woman. Okay, it is the next day, and we are at a point in the book where it's kind of reminding me of the situation with Katniss, because Haymitch is being called in to speak with President Snow privately. So we know how this has gone before, a lot of threats. So something tells me that there will be threats in this interaction, so. It looks like even back then 25 years before his death. He was not in great health, President Snow, I mean. It's just crazy that he lived to be in his 80s, considering the fact that he was poisoning himself on a regular basis. I have so many thoughts. I just finished part 1, so now I'm on to part 2. So first of all, Snow's threat to Haymitch is essentially that Haymitch is guaranteed to die. Snow pretty much told Haymitch that he's guaranteed to die. So that makes me wonder how the fuck he's going to not die, because Snow even mentions to him that they have mutts in this game that are programmed to kill specific tributes. So that obviously suggests that they have a mutt programmed to kill Haymitch, or like that's a possibility. So if Snow didn't want Haymitch to win these games, why did he win? But then again, I guess that kind of has to do with the head game maker. I wonder if there will be some fuckery with the head game maker, because obviously we know that in the Hunger Games, or President Snow said that if Seneca had any forethought, he would have just blown Katniss to bits so that Peeta could have been the victor. I believe the head game maker has the power to do that. So I wonder if there will be something going down. I'm gonna just read you the last sentence. Part 1, chapter 9. Standing in the doorway is Luella McCoy. How? Now I'm gonna read you the entire paragraph, or like the paragraph before that. So no more unauthorized chariot rides, I think. No mocking me on or off camera, he continues, and I have a belated birthday gift for you. I want it treated with the gratitude it deserves. He inclined his head in the direction of the conservatory. Standing in the doorway is Luella McCoy. Did they bring her back to life, or like what does he mean by that? I'm literally about to find out, but I just wanted to talk about how batshit crazy that is. That part 2 is called The Rascal, so I'm curious to see how this book is going to go from here on out based on everything going down. Okay, you know what just occurred to me 5 seconds after I shut the camera off? That I don't think that they announced to the public that one of the tributes passed away, because obviously they didn't show everything that went down with the chariot, so they didn't show the death. So I was wondering how they were going to spin the death, but I don't think that they are. I think that they created like a mutt version of her to be in the games and to kill off right away so that nobody questions it. And I'm pretty sure that that's probably how they're going to cover it up. I think we have some foreshadowing. I know we have some foreshadowing because I know what happens with the force field and the axe, but it's still funny to see foreshadowing for anyone who either doesn't remember or just doesn't know. Talking about how they're gonna break the arena, or how Haymitch is gonna break the arena. This paragraph goes, my whole life I've watched the games without even questioning how the arenas actually worked. I don't know what I thought breaking the arena meant. Me chopping at some cable or something with an axe? Anyway, it didn't involve an underground computer that even if I could reach, I wouldn't know how to break, unless I could go at it with the aforementioned axe. I don't know. I just wanted to say that that was not lost on me. I did notice. Please excuse the way that I look right now. I took a shower and wrapped my hair in a t-shirt. But I just wanted to say that they just did their like presentation type thing to Katniss scored an 11, which that was crazy for shooting an arrow at the game makers. And Haymitch basically went in and spoke to them. I don't even think he did anything. He didn't do anything. He just talked about how he was raped illegally and like nobody cares, and like a bunch of that the public can't know about, but he knows. So he basically just goes and says that he knows, and he scores a 1. Quite the opposite of Katniss's situation. A 1 is crazy. Holy shit, I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that Effie is showing up, which would be absolutely crazy. The only thing that makes me think this is the who's ready for a big, big, big day is something that I'm pretty sure that Effie said in the Hunger Games books. And this is what the paragraph says. The noise drowns out the ping of the arriving elevator, so she seems to appear out of thin air. A young woman with lavender hair, dressed like a grape gumball, and green checkered stockings, 4 black hats stacked on her head, clothes bags draped over her arms. She wheels a cart of spiky shoes into the center of the living room and announces who's ready for a big, big, big day. I'm sure that I'll find out upon turning the page, but I wanted to say that. And also why Haymitch seems to have like the relationship he does with her. It is Effie. Oh my god. I'm so happy. I love being right. I'm happy that I was right about that, and I just... Okay, wait. For some reason, that's not what I expected. So earlier on, Proserpina, is that how... Yeah, Proserpina, I don't know, a weird ass fucking name, goes and phones her sister and starts talking to her, and then starts talking about her sister to "Hey Mitch, my sister says it isn't our fault and to just do the best prep we can. She says if they try to fail us, we can appeal to the university board. My sister knows everybody on the university board on account of how she used to be the student social planner and had to get everything approved. She was the president of the Capital Cohort's chapters, and she basically created the Spring Saturnalia her freshman year. It's the best party of the year. She thinks we're going to be all right. Like, she says a positive attitude is 97% of the battle." And then I'm like, okay, what does this have to do with anything? Well, it turns out that it's not just, like, Effie's not just in the book. Effie is Proserpina's sister, which is crazy that we got all of that backstory on Effie, because we didn't know any of where she came from. As far as we knew, the only, like, life that she has ever had has been as the mentor for District 12, like she was for Katniss and Peeta, but that is not the case apparently. So it kind of looks like Plutarch was plotting to overthrow the Capitol for a long time, because he's already helping Haymitch figure out how to break the arena, which was not what I was expecting him to have been doing this for so long. And part of me is also surprised that it took that long in general for everything to go down. Like, if they've been planning a revolution, so to speak, for 25 years, I don't know, that just seems like longer than I figured. It seems that the districts were all unstable the whole time. They never really had any period of time where they were submissive. So remember how in the beginning, like close to the beginning of me reading this book, I talked about The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe? Man's wife's name in that poem is Lenore, and that's what it reminded me of. Well, that's kind of funny, because the Suzanne Collins quoted the poem saying, "Tell this soul with sorrow laden, if within the distant Aiden it shall clasp a sainted maiden whom the angels name Lenore. Clasp a rare and radiant maiden whom the angels name Lenore. Quoth the Raven nevermore." Oh my god, the lighting makes it so that you can see the outline of my camera and tripod right there, but it doesn't even matter. It's not even important. Fuck. Oh my god. I thought for a second I was holding the book upside down. I'm barely awake. I should be more awake. It's 9:15 on a Saturday morning, and I've been up for over 2 hours. I did a little bit of reading, not very much, because I did my reading in bed this morning. I am over halfway through the book, and we're in the games now. I have to say that I'm really excited for them to turn this into a movie, because I think that seeing the arena and all of the different things will be really cool. I think it'll be really fun to look at, for lack of a better word. The arena already seems more dangerous than and like exciting than the first book, like the Hunger Games book. Not even Catching Fire, because Catching Fire's arena was like cool and unique as well, the whole clock concept. But I think that this arena is actually way more interesting than just the basic ass woodlands of the 74th Hunger Games. It's really fun to read about all of the different things, and a lot of the things that Katniss had mentioned in that book, seeing in previous games pop up. The drinking water being poisonous makes me really sad, because there's bunnies in this, which I'm sure I will love seeing in the movie, because I love bunnies. Bunnies are like one of my top favorite animals, like probably number 3 or something. However, the scene with the drinking water, where the bunny drinks the drinking water after Haymitch drank the drinking water, and then the bunny fucking dies, heartbreaking. I was almost crying reading the book. It made me really sad. So I don't know if they're going to skip over that part, or if they're going to actually show it in the movie. I guess we'll find out in a year and a half. I think it's really interesting that all of the food in his pack is safe to eat, and then there's all of the food in his pack is also all of the food that could be found in the wild, like the bird eggs, like the apple trees, but all of the food in the arena is poisonous, so he has to eat from his pack, and it makes me curious as to how he's going to source food in the future. Oh, the whole Lulu situation, horrifying, but I'm glad that it's over, if that makes sense. Like, not that I wanted her to die necessarily, but A, I knew she was going to, and B, I knew she wasn't gonna last very long, and C, like, she was just being tortured. So it was, as sad as it was kind of nice to have her put out of her misery. And also, Haymitch even mentioned that he's not sure how he's going to be able to complete his portion of the plan with her, because she kind of is holding him back. And that makes me wonder why the game makers were in her ear telling her to go find Haymitch. But it is probably for the best that she died with him. Yeah, and Haymitch even said that he's the one that ended her because they were like, she had a really gruesome death, which is very strange that he didn't remember. Plutarch told him about the berms in the being dangerous in the arena, and that they were, yeah, I don't know, putting mutts in them. I mean, that's not what ended up killing her, but it's weird that seeing her run towards them wasn't the first thing on his mind. I mean, I'm sure he has a lot of things to think about, but that was the first thing that I thought about. The way that it ended was really horrible and gruesome, but it is a good thing that Haymitch put her out of her misery. Electric butterflies. I don't think I remember hearing about that particular mutt, but that does sound horrible. Electric blue butterflies that leave a powerful sting. I feel like it might have been mentioned briefly before, but I don't think it was specific to what games it occurred in, so I feel like something's gonna happen, so I'm going to be recording while reading. I wasn't expecting Ampert to die so soon. Oh my fucking god. Okay, this is completely irrelevant, but I just realized why his name is Ampert. Or like, yeah, because like obviously all of their names have to do with the district that they come from, but Ampert just seemed like such a normal name. Not normal, but like not as weird as Silka. I didn't even realize that it's because it has amp in it. But anyway, that's completely besides the point. Some of the mutts being programmed to specific tributes, well, Ampert was just torn apart by vicious squirrel-like creatures that were programmed for him and him alone, and Haymitch can't save him because the mutts are programmed to tear him apart. That's so horrible. And he even says, I promised Beatty I would not let him suffer. How do you really prevent suffering like that when you can't? That's so sad. That's so gruesome. This will be such a weird movie to watch. Even Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes was more gruesome than the Hunger Games trilogy. Like, you don't really see a lot of gore in, I mean, I guess there's some, like Glimmer had a pretty gory death. I don't know, there's just not, but then Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes had the scene with Arachne Crane and the rabies. I don't fucking know. The description, panting, I watched them fade away, then I turned back to what I am meant to witness. A small white skeleton stripped clean to the bone. No flesh or clothing remains, only an axe at its right side, my knife at its left. My lips move, but no sounds come out. Buddy? Like, that's horrible. A volcanic eruption. A golden volcanic eruption. He didn't break the arena, but he thought he did. And that is the end of part 2, I mean. We're on to part 3. We're at the career Haymitch face-off. Maisily with her darts. Now he has got another ally in Maisily, which is pretty much the only ally that we knew he had. Didn't know about Ampert, didn't know about Lulu. The ladybugs. That's all I have to say. The ladybugs. Every time we get another like interesting aspect of the arena, I get excited to see it in film. I feel like a giant porcupine is probably the last thing that I expected to see in this book, but I didn't really have any expectations going into this book, so I'm not that surprised. No, I'm definitely surprised. A giant porcupine. Okay, I'm at the point in the book where they have reached the end of the arena, and we're gonna find out what they do with that. I'm sure this is also the part where they separate and then Maisily dies, and we'll see how that all plays out, even though we kind of already know how that plays out. We just don't know all the details surrounding it, so that'll be shit. So that'll be good. One thing that is interesting about this book, I would say, there's a lot more like fourth wall breaks. I don't really feel like that's the right word, is because it's not like a separation of like actors and audience, but there is a separation between like game makers and tributes, like the people making everything happen versus the people playing the games. Game makers were literally inside the arena interacting, and like that, it was a mistake, but like it still happened. And also when Haymitch drove a stake or like a something into one of the flower berms because all of the butterflies flew back into it, because that's where the mutations are released from, are these flowers. And when they flew back inside, and he like stuck something in there and it prevented it from closing all the way, and he saw like a label on it, butterfly bush. There was like a label on the bush inside that he could see that said butterfly bush. So just a little bit of the imperfections of the Capitol's arena creation and that sort of thing. The birds are programmed to target mazily. Geese, bright bubblegum pink geese-like birds with beaks that are essentially a sword, sounds horrifying. Well, down to the final 3 now. Obviously, I know that the final showdown is between the girl with the axe from District 1 and Haymitch. Ice cream. Okay, well, we found Welly, so we probably will see how she dies. I was right, we did get to see Welly's death. I kind of figured we would, but it was a horrible, but I feel like every on-page death that we encounter is so gruesome. Like decapitation, really. I mean, it really drives home the point that this is very gory. You know what? I wonder how he's going to be punished, because we know this. I just did like a complete 180. We're not even talking about Welly and Silk anymore. I wonder how they're going to punish Haymitch, because the way we know him in current time, he is a lonely drunk. And I wonder how he ends up that way. I'm assuming something happens to his mom and his brother and his girlfriend as a punishment for what he does in the games, but I couldn't really understand. All that I knew was that he used the force field in the final showdown with the last girl. But would they really? Because they didn't slaughter Katniss's whole family when Katniss quite literally changed the rules of the games. She didn't, but like made it so that there could be 2 victors, because she was like, fuck this. I feel like Katniss's defiance was more of a defiance than just using the force field, but now reading this book, finding out that there was so much more to it, it makes more sense why he was punished so egregiously. And I could be wrong. I'm sure I'm not wrong, actually, but I'll have to wait and see what ends up going down. Okay, well, the games are over and there's 3 chapters and an epilogue left of the book, so there will still be things to happen. So I will say I was not expecting him to do the thing with the explosives at the end. I'm assuming, because it was not mentioned in Catching Fire when they're watching Haymitch, when like Katniss and Peeta are watching Haymitch's games, the only thing they talk about is like the axe thing, so I knew that that was coming. But then when he pulled out the explosive to commit suicide at the end, I was not expecting that whatsoever. So I'm assuming they probably cut it from what ended up airing, and that's why they didn't see that part. The last sentence of chapter 24 is, "I die happy, but something tells me that he is not dead." See, and I'm so happy that it wasn't just like another Hunger Games with no purpose. It actually has things that happen, like a reason, that are actually part of the rebel cause. It's not just the Hunger Games for the sake of entertainment, watching Haymitch's Hunger Games, because I feel like that would be a little bit too against the point. One thing that I found interesting that we didn't know until this point was that Haymitch, and I mean just like about Haymitch's character as a whole, not even just in this book, but like all of the books that he appears in, we didn't know that he knew about the very first victor of District 12, Lucy Gray. And he doesn't know, but like when he's being treated fresh out of the arena and cared for because his intestines were falling out, he is being fed clips of previous games and he sees Lucy Gray singing, and he doesn't know her by name because they don't say her name. He just mentions her as a girl singing in pink, green, and blue ruffles. I think that those were the colors of her dress. Colorful ruffles. So obviously we know that that's Lucy Gray, and he knows that she's Covey, and he wonders what her name is, and that's probably why Lenore Dove doesn't want to talk about it, and because she knows the situation. Yeah, he just kind of has that realization, and then it makes him angry. And then another thing that was interesting about this particular chapter was is he comes out and has his like interview, and he gets to watch like a rerun of the game. He gets to see the way that they cut the games to prevent anybody else from knowing about things that actually went on that he knows. Like sometimes in the other books we hear people talking, and in this book too, like they're like, I'm doing this even though I know that it won't be shown on to the masses, but this time we actually got to see what was shown to the masses after the fact, and he gets to see what was shown to the masses. And then it the chapter kind of closes out and makes me wonder what's going to end up happening because of the interaction when President Snow comes and crowns Haymitch. Some victors bow, some kneel, but I just stand there trying to read his expression as he approaches and places the crown on my head, heavy and trapping. I guess Snow lands on top, I say under the applause. Utterly guilty on all possible counts, I await his sentence. He merely smiles and says, "Enjoy your homecoming." So I have a feeling, obviously President Snow doesn't want him to enjoy his homecoming, so I have a feeling he has really horrible circumstances waiting for when Haymitch gets home, and we're gonna find those out. So, a fire? Are you kidding me? Oh my god, that's so horrible. That's not what I expected. Are you fucking kidding me? I assumed that they were all going to be hung, or that he was going to show up and they were already going to be dead. I was not expecting Sid and his mom to die in a fire that he witnesses. I was expecting her at the very, like Lenore at the very least, to be hung because she was in prison. I was not expecting poisonous gumdrops. That was probably like the last thing I expected. I don't know what I expected, but that was the last thing, that's for sure. Oh, another thing that I noticed that was peculiar is that I just forgot to mention is when Snow is crowning him, he is wearing a red rose instead of a white rose, as he typically does in the Hunger Games trilogy. So I wonder why that is. Look, it's the poem. Closer, Raven, nevermore. I think you'll like this movie.
The movie?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Well, it's not like you're gonna read the book.
that's true. I will know it. You know me. I don't even know if I know how to read anymore.
Randall.
Just recording yourself reading?
Yeah. I talk about my thoughts, but I can't do that now with you here.
That's an insane shot. I like that that's what you picked for to get dressed up in the B-roll.
Clothes on.
Yeah, that's clothes. That's a glorified blanket.
First of all, I'd like to apologize for not really closing out the video. I'm about to close out the video, so it's not like this video is leaving without being closed. I just finished the book off camera because my boyfriend came and decided he wanted to start cooking, which is fine. I just didn't want to be sitting there talking to the camera in front of him and having his noises in the background. The second thing that I'd like to apologize for is the odd angle. I'm like leaning back against the couch so that I'm actually in frame. Without any further ado, as I'm sure you can probably assume at this point in the video, I have finished Sunrise on the Reaping. Is it my favorite book in this series? I definitely liked it better than Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, and I have not been able to stop thinking about it, and I definitely gave it 5 stars. I think for my favorite, it would probably be between Catching Fire and this book. I don't know. There was just something about this book that took me back to when I was 9 years old. It just, when I said that I had been chasing that feeling for so long, I genuinely mean that. I have been chasing that feeling, and this book gave me that feeling. It wasn't one of those books where I was non-stop reading it just because my life is more busy than it was when I was 9 years old. Obviously, I was able to just spend an entire 4 hours reading the entire book front to back in the evening after school. I wasn't just reading this book, I was also making this video, so I wasn't just going to not film while reading it. So I would film in tiny little increments so that I wouldn't burn myself out. So all in all, I bought this book on the 19th and I finished it on the 22nd. It took me 4 days to read, which is not as long as I thought it was going to take me to read this book, and I'm very happy that I did. The only book in the Hunger Games series that I've not rated 5 stars is Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, and even that was a 4-star book. I'm so happy that Suzanne Collins finally gave us this book because I have been wanting this book since I was 9 years old. The first time that I read the Hunger Games trilogy, I wanted a Haymitch story. She finally gave it to us, and it was so much more than just a short film, and now we're gonna get a full-length movie, and I'm so excited, and I guarantee that my boyfriend is going to love that movie, and I'm going to love that movie. I know this might be a controversial opinion, but I actually like the Hunger Games movies. I think they're really good. Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes is probably the best movie. We're not even talking about Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, what am I on? We're talking about Sunrise on the Reaping. The way that Suzanne Collins wrapped this in a nice little bow for this book was just so satisfying, especially like the elements of it. One thing that I'm a sucker for is when the title of the book ends up being in the book, and my dumbass didn't realize that was even what was going on the first time I read it. I actually had to go back and kept like rereading things that I was missing because I was so confused, because there was like a questionnaire at the end of the book with Suzanne Collins, and when reading her answers to some of the questions I was confused, so I had to go back and read. I think I cried at the end of this book as well, can I just say, which sucks that I didn't. I mean, maybe it's a good thing that I didn't catch that on camera because I would be cringing having to edit myself bawling my eyes out the way that I did at the end of this book. I'm a sucker for when the book mentions the title in the book, and this book did that, and my dumbass didn't realize that it did that because the way the book is called Sunrise on the Reaping, so that sounds like a noun, but the way that it was used in the book is like more like a verb. If this is even making sense, I'm just gonna give you the example. Lenore dies at the end with the gumdrops, and she tells Haymitch not to let the sun rise on the reaping. She's not talking about the actual sunrise, you know, the thing. I hope that makes sense, and I hope that I don't just sound like a fucking idiot, but just the fact that it wasn't in the context that I thought it would be. And also the end of the book, the way, so obviously Lenore, her like ballad or poem or whatever is The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe, which I talked about at the beginning, and I've always liked that poem, so having that in this book was fun to read about. And just the way that she wrapped it all up in the end of the book, after Lenore passes away and says don't let the sun rise on the reaping, you flip back and forth between getting excerpts of the poem and seeing Haymitch wake up every reaping, and like as the years go by, seeing all of the tributes, not in like immense detail, but you know that that's what's happening. He's going through all of the years where the sun rises on the reaping until the year that it doesn't, right? So he's slowly descending into madness, which in the poem The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe, the raven is like talking to him. I don't want to go too into depth on the poem because I just know that anybody who understands the poem better than me, which is probably almost everybody, is going to like be upset if I get anything wrong. So I'm not going to go too in depth, but basically the idea behind the poem is that the man is going slowly crazy because there's this bird, a raven. Basically all of this to say the last line of the poem, and like when I mean it is giving excerpts of the poem, part of the poem and then part of his living and then more poem and living, like it's all of that going back and forth. And I'm wondering why we're just getting so many lines of poem, and it's just so that the poem is in your brain. And then the very last lines of the book fucked me up, and I have not been able to stop thinking about it, when he goes, and when I remember that, I hear Sid's voice waking me the morning that raven first tapped on my chamber door. Happy birthday, Haymitch. Oh my god, I just got chills. The poem starts with a raven tapping on this guy's window, right? So he goes out, interacts with the raven. That's what starts the poem, and then throughout the poem he descends into madness. And then during this book, after Lenore says don't let the sun rise on the reaping, the very first reaping that he started to go fucking crazy was his own reaping. And it takes you back to the beginning of the book. The first and last lines of the book are I sound so crazy right now. The first and the last lines of the book are happy birthday, Haymitch, because those were the first words that were spoken to him the morning that he was reaped. And then every reaping after, he's just been going crazier and crazier until he finally stops the sunrise on the reaping, which we obviously know happens in the Hunger Games trilogy. They abolish the Hunger Games system. I hope that made sense, and I hope you understand why this was so just perfect to me. And then the epilogue, oh, the epilogue. He starts talking about Katniss and Peeta when they're babies, and it confirms the fact that Burdock, which we knew, Burdock was Katniss's father. It wasn't another Everdeen, it was Burdock Everdeen. But when he, oh my god, it makes me so sad. And then it also confirmed the thing that I said. Remember how he called Luella sweetheart? And I pointed out the fact that that's what he called Katniss. And I was like, I wonder if, I don't remember exactly what I said, but I know that I pointed it out. He pretty much confirms that that's why. He says, I first saw the girl at the Hob when she was just a baby. Burdock was so proud of her, he toted her around everywhere. After he died in the mine explosion, she started coming alone, trading the odd squirrel or rabbit. Tough and smart, her hair in 2 braids then, reminding me for all the world of Luella McCoy, my sweetheart of old. And after she volunteered for the games, that nickname couldn't help but slip out. I didn't want to let them in, her and PETA, but the walls of a person's heart are not impregnable. Not if they have ever known love. That's what Lenore Dove says anyway. Okay. I didn't want to have anything to do with their memorial book after the war. What use, what point, to relive all the loss? But when Burdock's page came up, I had to mention him showing me the grave, and I felt compelled to tell him about May's Lee Donner, former owner of the Mockingjay pin, and how Sid loved the stars. Before I knew it, they all came tumbling out. Family, tributes, friends, comrades in arms, and everybody. Even my love. I finally told our story. A few days after that, Katniss showed up with an old basket filled with goose eggs, not to eat, to hatch. I raided a few different nests so they can breed all right. Never mind that we had roast goose for dinner. She's not an easy person. She's like me, Pete always says. But she was smarter than me, or luckier. She's the one who finally kept that sun from rising. Oh my god. PETA fashioned some kind of incubator, and when the eggs hatched, mine was the first face those goslings saw. Sometimes they just graze on the green, but on fine days we'd be known to wander on over to the meadow. Lenore Dove likes it best there, and I'm content where she's content. Like the geese, we really did make for life. I'm not sure I'll be here in the old there before much longer. My liver's wrecked, and I only dry out when the train's late. I drink differently these days, though, less to forget, more out of habit. When my time comes, it comes, but I've no idea when that will be. I know one thing, though. The Capitol can never take Lenore Dove from me again. They never really did in the first place. Nothing you can take from me was ever worth keeping, and she's the most precious thing I've ever known. When I tell her that, she always says, I love you like all fire, and I reply, I love you like all fire too. The end. Okay. I don't really feel like I need to say anything else. At least he acknowledges that I skipped the first paragraph of the epilogue because my intention was only to read the part about Katniss and Luella and the sweetheart, but then I just had to keep reading because, oh my god. But at least he acknowledges the fact that he played a hand in stopping the sunrise. And he even said, I fulfilled my promise about the reaping, or at least lent a hand. But she says I can't come to her yet. I have to look after my family. And the way that he calls Katniss and PETA her family makes me so emotional. Her family, his family. Obviously, it should be pretty obvious that this was a 5-star book. That's all I needed. I just needed to read the last chapter and bawl my eyes out, and then I could end the video. I don't even have to say anything else. But another thing that confused me was the interviewer asked Suzanne Collins if the only 2 characters that were in all 5 of the books are President Snow and Clerk Carmine. But I was confused because I don't remember Clerk Carmine being in the original trilogy. But then I googled it, and somebody on Reddit said that just confirms that Clerk Carmine was the fiddle player at Finnick and Annie's wedding. So if that's what that is, that's crazy. I'm so happy that this book exists. And I'm so happy that you watched me read it if you made it to the end. This video is probably going to be so fucking long, but okay, well, anyway, now that you've watched me bawl my eyes out on camera, I think I should probably just say goodbye and save myself any further embarrassment. Thank you so much for watching this video. Stay tuned. I'll probably make another one sometime eventually. Yeah, thank you for watching. I will see you next time. Goodbye.